Everyone in the diner thought they understood how the world worked, and that morning it seemed determined to prove them right. The bell above the door chimed with its familiar tired ring as customers came and went, coffee refills sloshed, plates clinked, and the smell of grease clung to the air like a memory that refused to leave. For Clara, this diner wasn't just a job, it was survival. She balanced her toddler, Leo, on her hip as she wiped down a booth with the other hand, her movements practiced, almost automatic. The babysitter had cancelled again, and missing a shift wasn't an option. Rent was due, diapers were running low, hope, some days, felt even scarcer. She smiled anyway, because smiling was part of the uniform. Then he walked in. The man didn't announce himself, didn't demand attention, but somehow the room bent toward him. Expensive suit, perfectly pressed, shoes that had never known dirt. A face people recognized from magazines and business news. The billionaire, the kind of man who could buy the diner, the street, maybe the whole town without blinking. He slid into a booth by the window, alone, posture stiff, eyes distant. Clara's stomach tightened, not with excitement, but with dread. Wealthy customers were unpredictable. Some were kind, others treated servers like air. She approached, pad in hand, Leo resting sleepily against her chest. The man barely looked up as he ordered black coffee and a simple breakfast. No small talk, no smile, just a clipped nod. Clara nodded back, scribbled, and moved on. The hours dragged. Plates piled up. Leo stirred, fussy, but quiet. When Clara returned with the billionaire's food, she placed it carefully, hoping, irrationally, that Ed noticed the effort, the balance, the exhaustion in her eyes. Ed didn't. He ate slowly, methodically, never once meeting her gaze. When he finished, he stood, placed exact change on the table for the bill, and walked out. Clara's heart sank before she even counted it. 0 tip, not a dollar, not a coin, nothing. Around her, coworkers exchanged knowing looks. Someone muttered, figures. Clara swallowed hard. She told herself not to cry. She'd been stiffed before, plenty of times. Rich or poor, cruelty didn't discriminate. She cleared the table, stacking the plates, her hands trembling just enough to betray her calm. Then she noticed something odd. The plate felt heavier than it should. She lifted it again. Underneath, folded neatly, was a thick envelope. For a moment, her breath caught. She looked around, half expecting someone to shout that it was a joke. The envelope had her name written on it. Not waitress. Not server. Clara. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a letter, handwritten, and beneath it, a check that made her knees weak. A sum so large it didn't seem real. Enough to pay her debts. Enough to change everything. The letter was short but heavy with meaning. The billionaire wrote that he had watched her all morning, how she worked without complaint, how she cared for her child between orders, how she treated every customer with dignity even when they offered none in return. He explained the $0 tip was intentional, a test not of greed, but of character. Would she lash out, would she curse him, or would she keep going? He wrote that had once been a child in a diner booth, raised by a single mother who counted coins just like Clara had. Someone had once given her a chance, and it changed his life. Now it was his turn. Clara sat down hard in the booth, tears finally spilling over. Leo stirred, touching her face with his tiny hand, and for the first time in a long while, Clara laughed through her tears. That day didn't just change her bank account. It changed how she saw herself. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't forgotten. And sometimes, the moment that looks like cruelty is actually the doorway to a miracle. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you to never judge a moment too quickly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because stories like this can change how you see the world, and the next one might just change everything. Clara didn't tell anyone about the envelope at first. Not her coworkers, not the manager, not even her mother. She tucked it deep into her bag like it might vanish if exposed to too much air. For the rest of the shift, she moved through the diner in a daze, the clatter of dishes and the of conversation sounding distant, unreal. Every few minutes her hand brushed against the zipper of her bag just to reassure herself it was still there, that the morning hadn't been some cruel hallucination born from exhaustion. When her shift finally ended, she stepped outside into the late afternoon light. Leo balanced on her hip, the sky stretched wide and pale above the parking lot. For the first time in years, she didn't immediately calculate how much gas she could afford or whether she should skip dinner to stretch groceries another day. Instead, she stood still, breathing, feeling the weight of possibility settle into her chest. At home, in their small apartment with peeling paint and a heater that rattled like it might give up any second, Clara laid Leo down for his nap and sat at the kitchen table. She opened the envelope again, read the letter slowly, tracing each word as if it might explain why her life had suddenly tilted in a new direction. The check stared back at her, calm and undeniable. She called the bank, half expecting laughter on the other end, but the teller's voice was professional, steady. The funds were real, very real. Clara covered her mouth and cried, quietly, so she wouldn't wake Leo. Over the next few days, reality began to shift in small, meaningful ways. Bills were paid on time. The fridge filled with food instead of hope. Leo got new shoes without holes in the soles. But the biggest change wasn't financial, it was internal. Clara stood a little straighter. She spoke with a little more confidence. When customers snapped or complained, it still stung, but it didn't hollow her out the way it used to. She knew now that someone had seen her. That her struggle wasn't invisible. A week later, a letter arrived at the diner addressed to her. Inside was an invitation to meet. No demands, no expectations. Just coffee. Clara almost didn't go. She was afraid of shattering the fragile miracle by touching it too closely. But something in her, a spark she'd forgotten she had, pushed her forward. The cafe was quiet, understated. The billionaire was already there, dressed simply this time, no entourage, no spectacle. Stood when saw her, offered a gentle smile. They talked for hours. About life, about loss, about mothers who sacrifice everything and children who grow up determined to repay a debt they can never fully settle. He didn't offer her a job or another check. Instead, he offered something rarer. Mentorship, support, belief. He told her the money was just the beginning, not the end. Clara walked out of that cafe feeling something she hadn't felt since before life got hard, direction. Months passed. Clara enrolled in night classes, something she'd dreamed of but never dared attempt. The diner was still part of her life, but it no longer defined it. Leo grew, laughed more, slept better. And one quiet evening, as Clara tucked him into bed, she realized the true gift hadn't been the money under the plate. It was the reminder that dignity matters, that kindness echoes, and that one moment, one choice, can ripple through a lifetime. And if this chapter made you believe a little more in unexpected miracles, in quiet strength, and in the power of being seen, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because the next story might be the one that reminds you how close hope really is.